YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back, and today we're going through every NFL playoff team, and I'm going to give you reasons why they can win the Super Bowl and why they can't. So that's for every team here. I do this video every year. One of my favorite ones we do. Really enjoy making this one, so hopefully you like it too. Hopefully you can smash that like button, subscribe. Full NFL coverage, full playoff coverage, free agency, the coaching madness going on right now, the draft. We just had a mock draft go up. We got wild card picks coming tonight, Tuesday the 5th here. We got it all. So subscribe. Check out that Twitter. There's a link in the description and comments for that, as well as the other things like that Sided app. We have some posts on Sided where you comment and you can earn points and win Amazon gift cards. It's pretty cool. Check it out. But yeah, I mentioned that Twitter. Right now we have each wild card matchup. You guys vote. So when we do the picks videos, you guys are going to have an icon, like the fan vote, the Goat House fan voted pick, and we're going to put it over to you guys pick. We'll do this every single week. And you guys will predict the rest of the bracket as well. So a lot going on here on the Twitter. Check it out. It's be much appreciated if you can follow us. Chiefs, don't pay attention to the order too much. It's just we're going Chiefs, Packers, Bills, Saints. So it's 1 seeds, 2 seeds. We're swapping back and forth. So don't pay attention to the order. And I couldn't fit all the words on the screen, so they're just there. I'm going to talk about them, more in depth. The graphics guy couldn't fit it all on there. I wish he could have done better. The Chiefs, it's no secret they got an elite offense. What stands out about them is not only their speed, but they spread the field out so much, and teams know it, but you can't really stop it. It spreads the defense out, and it just makes it a lot easier for Mahomes, who is the best player in football. I know Aaron Rodgers probably going to win MVP, as he should. You can debate Josh Allen. I know people can debate Derrick Henry as well, but I think in general, Mahomes has kind of proven that, but at any given time, it could be Aaron Rodgers. So I don't want any people to start debating that in the comments. That's not this video, okay? But yeah, Mahomes, elite talent, obviously, and wouldn't be surprising if he continued to get better throughout these playoffs every step of the way because where he's at in his career, early stage of his career. Like the staff, great experience. We'll get to the negatives, I guess. The defense gets takeaways. They get their hands on the ball. They make sure to get those takeaways. That's a key part of the defense, especially in the playoffs, how to make a run. Can you get after the quarterback, and can you get takeaways? Those are the biggest things, for defenses making the run. So yeah, all of that. I think the main thing is how much they spread teams out, with their offense. And I think they're more balanced than people give them credit for the most part here. I think their defense is better than people think, really. It's not great, obviously, but it's a little better. I think, I like Spagnuolo as a coach. I think it can continue to improve throughout these playoffs. Why, what's going to stop them? Why can't they? They don't have too much of a run game, whether it's with Clyde Edwards-Helaire or not. They don't have too much of a run game. That's really not their game, though, so it's not a huge knock on them. That's really not what succeeds. What has worked for them in the past is, just pass the ball. That's what's worked. We talk about their defense. I think it's better than people think. And I also think, they get takeaways. That's one key piece. They're not getting too much of a pass rush this year, though. I think they rely too much on Chris Jones from the interior. These edge guys got to be better. Frank Clark's got to be better. These guys got to be better. I could see a scenario where Frank Clark really turns it on. He was pretty damn good in the Super Bowl last year. I can see him turning it on, so they're going to need that. Their pressure is so important, so important. And this is kind of based off the regular season, which this could go away, but they're kind of get too creative at times with their play call, play designs. I just want them to stick to what works. Don't overthink things. So then the playoffs, sometimes they would kind of decide to do these weird plays or have somebody else besides Mahomes throw. We saw that in the Falcons game. And it just doesn't really work. Just stop, go back to what's working. But the explanation for that could be that they didn't want to, show, maybe they want teams to game plan for that creativity, and they're not really going to do it. That could be a possibility. They're going to stick. I trust them mainly, but if that pops up, that could be a problem there for the Chiefs. So mainly positives here for the Chiefs. They have a legitimate shot to repeat because how explosive, how spread out that offense is, how dominant they are at the right spots, quarterback, offensive line. Takeaways on defense. Offense lines, I guess, it's maybe not as good, as it was in, maybe last year, but it did get better throughout the playoffs last year, and can it do that again? So can it continue to improve and protect Mahomes? It protected Mahomes for the most part this year. I mean, he does a phenomenal job of avoiding sacks, avoiding pressure, getting the ball out in time. That's another problem too. Teams just really, it's just such a tough game plan, It's tough to get pressure on Mahomes, and then you could when you struggle to get pressure the old-fashioned way on quarterbacks on teams, you start blitzing. But if you blitz Mahomes, it seems like he gets better. Like it's kind of a proven thing. So, and you really don't want to do that because you're taking away guys in coverage. So there's a list of problems when playing the Chiefs. See why they're good. Let's talk about the Packers. Packers, elite offense. They have a elite quarterback too. That might be not listed, but maybe the best player in football right there. Mahomes should win the MVP. Rodgers somehow he's gotten better since last year. Maybe some adjustments they had to go through last year, perhaps. And he's had injuries before last year, so maybe he's kind of just getting back in the groove. But he's fantastic this year. They have home field advantage in the playoffs, and a lot of these teams do, like the Chiefs, but I think the Packers is a pretty big one. It's a pretty big one. Because, you look at the Titans game for an example. Snow game, we thought, Derrick Henry and Snow could work out pretty well too, but the Packers just, if you watch the game, the Packers were confident in themselves on their field in the snow. The Titans were not, So that's a thing. That's definitely a thing here. They don't even need a crowd. It's just a home field advantage. I think the offense is fantastic balance, great balance on the offense. What I mean by that is they can pass, they can run, and they're both dominant. They're both really good. But even if you want to go further, take a step further into that, into their passing game specifically, I think it has great balance. It's not just a downfield. Rodgers is deadly with the deep ball, but they can control the clock just by quick passes. Sometimes that out route is just so dominant. It can't be stopped because you kind of got to play off a little bit because you're worried about the Rodgers deep ball to those receivers, even outside Adams. The guys that have speed and get open deep. Valdes-Scantling's got to catch the damn ball, but they can control the clock just by dumping it off, doing one step drop, throw off the back foot. Rodgers is so good at that. Rodgers could run. Aaron Jones is one of the best backs in football, and they have a collection of backs that can contribute. The offensive line's great. Bakhtiari being out, that's tough. That's a big blow, but I still trust this offensive line for the most part. Defense feels like it's improving. Last year's defense was better. From the start of this year, feels like to now, they're getting more pressure. I feel like they're making more plays. Adrian Amos all over the field. Darnell Savage is kind of the playmaker back there. Alexander has the ability to take away a top receiver on a team, which is fantastic. That's kind of their positive and negative from opposite sides of the ball. I just realized. We'll talk about that in a second. Run defense was one of the worst in the game. It's definitely it's not there right now. Is it the worst in the playoffs? So a lot of reasons why they can win. They're very hot right now as well. A lot of reasons why they can't. Run defense can struggle. It's better, but is it better by that much? The stats actually might say so. Have they played the best run? They played the Titans, but that was in the snow. How would my point is, we know it. Teams can beat them because of that. If teams win, if I fell asleep during a Packers game and I woke up and Packers lost, my first guess would be some team kind of took advantage of them and running the ball. That would be my guess. Would never fall asleep during an NFL game, let alone a playoff game. So we're clear. So run defense can struggle, and that could have teams control the clock, which is huge. That's how you pull off upsets. If a team knows they're kind of outmatched, you control the clock. You try not to let. There's been times here and there where the Packers offense, can't really get on their groove. They're a little slow start, or they have a gap in the middle of the game where they can't. It's not often, but it's here and there. I think it's when teams are managing the clock, not letting them get in that groove. It feels like they need that first drive, and that looks great when they start with the ball, and then they're in their groove. Teams could. It's easier said than done, but try to avoid that. That can cause some problems. This is a weird one. They tend to struggle with. I don't know if it's elite. I don't know what it is. They're not that good against really good blitzing teams. I know that, but when teams are able to get pressure on Rodgers, when they're able to get a pass rush, which is rare, credit to their offensive line, credit to Rodgers for all that. But when they do it, it seems to throw them off big time. The Buccaneers did it mainly with the blitz. Somehow the Panthers did it in that game. Not too long ago. The Panthers were doing it, and it really slowed and the Packers are way better than the Panthers, so they won the game, and they did enough on offense. But somewhere in the middle and late in the game, somehow they were able to get a pass rush, and it really threw them off. I think it's because they're not used to it, because they're usually kind of holding teams, but like holding teams from, doing much. I don't mean holding. I mean, holding them from doing much. But when it happens, it kind of is that element of surprise, and it really throws them off. So that's something I've noticed, mainly with the Bucs game, but it kind of randomly pops up. So if a team just from the get-go, maybe it doesn't have to be the get-go, just getting crazy pressure, you might be a little worried. I don't know. Rodgers can definitely throw under pressure. He can throw on the run. It's just there's not as dominant anymore, and they kind of rely on being a dominant offense, which they are. I think we're going to see more brackets, which is basically a double team. Somebody's going to be on Adams, and there's going to be a safety over the top. That's what a bracket is. The two guys aren't going to be pressing him. That's ridiculous, or anything like that. But teams will do that more. It's win or go home. Teams will do their best possible game plan in the playoffs. We always see better game plans, different game plans in the playoffs. That's why sometimes it's unpredictable, because it's the end of the line. You have to do it. You have to get your best game plan. You can't save anything for next time. So I think teams will do this. Teams will do this, and it's happened throughout the regular season as well, and he still can beat it. Some teams slow him down a little bit, but no one's stopping him. But that's why I think it's avoiding a team like the Rams, which should be possible if they avoid that team. Because I think a team like, it's an example. And like I said, on the other side, Alexander could kind of lock down other teams' top receivers and force the other receivers to make the big plays. Similar things can happen on the other side. If they bracket successfully Adams, if they do that, which can be done. It's not easy, but it can be done, playing against the best teams here in the playoffs, then they're going to have to rely on their other receivers or their run game, which they could do. That's just how good the Packers are. They could do, but can the other receivers win in the big moments? Valdes-Scantling come up with drops sometimes. Sometimes they struggle to get separation. Valdes-Scantling seems to beat guys just straight line. But yeah, Tunyon's been great, so they can do it. They can, but there might be times where teams maybe successfully, and that doesn't mean 0 yards or anything close to that, but kind of successfully slow down Adams, limit him, and force everyone else to beat them. That's what they're going to go for. I can promise you they're going to go for that. Are they going to be successful? We'll see. So obviously you see, mainly good things here for the Packers. The Bills, another elite offense. We got a train of elite offenses here. Wide open playbook. I think there's just so much to their playbook. They got everything. All of a sudden they're throwing options at you. Josh Allen with his running ability. So that's tough. Like, you game plan for them. Like, okay, we know they're going to pass, but then what type of play are they going to throw at us? It's kind of tricky, keeping teams on their toes. Right now, they're the hottest team in football. And that sounds funny. They can win the Super Bowl because they're the hottest team in football. Not necessarily there. I want to kind of branch off of that a little bit, but I think a big reason, it kind of has to do with it. I think a big reason they're the hottest team in football, I mean, I don't know what it is exactly, but they figured something out along the way. They started off really hot, and then teams started to figure them out, and they slowed down a bit. And then all of a sudden, they're just the hottest team in football. They're boosting. The offense is ridiculous. Josh Allen, players are playing better on both sides of the ball. That's a big piece of it. But they figured something out with the game plan to kind of throw other teams off. And this is key here, because teams are still trying to learn how to game plan for the Bills. Like I talked about, the game plan is everything in the playoffs. It's everything. Obviously, you got to have talent. The quarterback's got to be playing well. Those things matter, obviously. Game plan is pretty much everything here, and other teams would be better off if the Bills started the way they finished in just the whole season. That probably would have resulted in the Bills having more wins if they played from week one like they're playing now all the way through. But it'd be better for other teams, so it might be a blessing in disguise there, because it's just harder for teams to game plan for it, because it almost feels like they're kind of fresh, they're kind of new, and that's a factor, I think, in my opinion. Defense gets takeaways. They've been taking the ball away. They've been improving. They've been playing pretty good ball. Kind of what we thought the Bills defense would look like. Early in the year, they were not. So another factor, the real Bills team showed up somewhere middle to late of the season, and that could be a problem for game planners, for staffs out there. So they got a lot going on for them. The offense is just really tough to stop. Why they can't, what would stop them? Somewhat of a weak run. They don't really have much of a run game. Zach Moss starting to run hard, starting to run pretty well. It's not terrible run game, but it's pretty. They don't have predictable play calling, because I think that goes back to the playbook, but it's pretty predictable if you can guess if they're going to run or pass. You can kind of guess the play type pretty well, and teams will flat out game plan for the pass if somehow they can get. There were some teams throughout the year here and there. Oddly enough, the Titans, whose defense is terrible, they figured out how to stop Josh Allen in the air. I don't know, and the Bills are much better since then. That was early in the year, and it was a Tuesday night, so we can't have we can't have really any takeaways from that game. Well, the only takeaway is it kind of sits in the back of your mind. Will a team success? All it takes is one. For every team, that applies to every team, every player. All it takes is one team to game plan successfully. Can they figure out how to slow down Josh Allen, maybe get a takeaway or two on him force them to run. Let the run game beat us because it's probably not going to beat us. That's what teams are thinking. So that'll be the game. It makes the game plan a little easier, but at the same time, teams are on their toes because they're afraid of the deep ball. But then Josh Allen can take off with his feet and they can beat you with the underneath things as well. They're more afraid of the deep ball. So they kind of got the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs got it spread that way, vertically and horizontally. The Bills got you really spread out. I think vertically down the field, north and south there. Defense is getting better, like I mentioned, and they get quarterback pressure, which is good. But they for a team that gets that much pressure, they don't get the quarterback down as much as you would think. And this was the thing last year too. And every time I watch the Bills, I see this. They get good pressure. Jerry Hughes is insane to getting pressure, but he can't bring the quarterback down. I mean, he's got sacks, he can, but that could be a problem in the playoffs. You got to take advantage of those situations. But really not too many negatives here for the Bills to see why they're a high-powered team and have a shot at the Super Bowl. Saints are next. I think arguably the most balanced team. You definitely could debate that. They very well could be the most balanced team in football, and that's great. That is great because you need offense, and it's an offensive era, but you need both sides of the ball to win a Super Bowl, in my opinion. The Chiefs and the Bills got offense, the Packers got offense, but those teams' defenses, which very well could be down on a day, if they are, that could be the difference because all it takes is one moment, all it takes is one game, one team to send you packing, So Saints having that balance is fantastic. They get to the QB and they get takeaways. That is the key thing for defense in the playoffs. Like I mentioned, we've seen a bunch of teams that get takeaways. Now here's kind of a balance specifically on defense too. They get to the QB, they will get them down, and they get the ball. They take the ball away. They're pretty clutch. They're pretty clutch on defense. I think at any given time they can be balanced. So the offense can be great. The defense can be great. The offense seems to be heating up as the season goes on. The defense, I think, was a little better maybe a few weeks ago than it was recently, except for the Panthers game at the end of the year. But, yeah, they're good on both sides of the ball. I think we covered that. Why they can't. Can the offense and defense be on at the same time? They can, but there's been times where they're really not. Beginning portion of the year, offense was solid. The defense was pretty bad early on. It was weird. And then the middle portion of the year, offense was struggling. I know Drew Brees was hurt in there. The defense was maybe the best in football, elite level. And now at the end of the year, the offense started to pick it up. The defense is not really near that elite level. I still consider it good. But when, if they play the high-powered offensive teams and the defense isn't on, the offense is scoring, can this offense keep up? They're balanced, but are they at the top of either category? They can be at any given game. They can be a top offense, a top defense on a week, a playoff week. But, again, all it takes is one. All it takes is 1 week for them, one to be off at the wrong time, or I don't think both will be off ever, but it's possible. And then the explosive plays downfield, which have been a problem over the last few years. They've been lacking that. They're probably like the only team that, they're in the category of teams that normally don't make the playoffs in terms of their downfield plays, the explosive plays downfield. Their explosive plays come from mainly Kamara, but it's usually not. He gets downfield. He's one of the best players in football, so that's a positive as well. Hopefully Michael Thomas is back in there. But, yeah, the explosive plays, and I think why that pops up even more in the playoffs or is more visible, not only because more people are watching, but because going back to the game plan, team's game plan, they know what the Saints are all about. You can't just guess what they're going to do. No, this game we better game plan for the downfield game, the downfield passes, because they might do it. They're going to game plan. They're gonna game plan to the weaknesses, the Saints' weaknesses. They're gonna try to beat that, expose that, and so teams will game plan for the small ball, the quick game. They'll game plan for Kamara. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to stop them, but it makes things a little easier. So that's kind of the negative there with the Saints. Mainly is offense and defense. If they're on at the same time every step of the way, they're going to be very hard to beat, and they could become maybe the top contender. Steelers defense is elite potential. It was elite for the most part of this year. For the most part, it was the best defense in football. I'm kind of leaning towards Rams are the best defense in football right now, but it can get back to being elite. We talk about getting to the quarterback, getting takeaways. A lot of these playoff teams, it's kind of a trend. They can do one or both. That's why they're in the playoffs, and that's why they're a good team. The Steelers might be the best one in that category. They lead the NFL in team sacks, and they're second in takeaways. That is fantastic. So the defense at any given time can go out there and win the game, put the offense in a good situation. That has slowed down a little bit. I think Bud Dupree being out. We'll talk about the weaknesses in a little bit, though. But you see where I'm going with that. Offense has playmakers. They could spread the field out. It's just about not being one-dimensional and Big Ben being on his game, a little inconsistent at times. But yeah, why they can't. they're pretty damn one-dimensional. We talk about it all the time, that they can't run the ball. They can throw downfield, but it's pretty inconsistent. We have that on here as well, inconsistent downfield. Big Ben would be a little short on throws, and it would be a whole game where he can't do it. But then to come back against the Colts, it looks beautiful. So, things like it's more off than on. That's kind of the negative there. So then they become even more one-dimensional, where they only have to they only rely on the quick passing game, which is good sometimes, but when teams game plan correctly, when you're playing the best of the best, they'll get the job done. We talk about the run game being pretty damn weak. Hopefully that can pick up. Defense is pretty beat up, so I don't know if they're at elite defense, the best combination of sack takeaway. I don't know if they're the best on the year, but are they the best right now? They can be, but I think because of how beat up it is, across the board, mainly missing Bud Dupree is pretty big. It's pretty big, and it's kind of shown a little bit. But T.J. Watt, arguably the best defensive player in football, can take over. Those guys can do it for sure, and the defense can win games. Seahawks, very balanced team, I think. They're a confusing team to me. I think they can win in multiple ways. They can win just pounding the football, wearing you out, and that can open up the pass game. Or Russell Wilson can just straight up beating you, airing the ball out. And they've shown recently that their defense can go out and win games, win big games too. Look at the Rams, the Rams game a week ago, clinching the division. So they're one of those teams that they can win in so many ways. That's a big time positive. Elite quarterback Russell Wilson. Which Russell Wilson's going to show up though, but either way he's very good. But I would imagine elite quarterback elite Russell Wilson shows up, and they got the playmakers: DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. I think Chris Carson I like a lot, and the defense has been improving, like we talked about. Why they can't similar to the Saints a little bit. Can the offense and defense be on at the same time? I trust the Saints a lot more in this category though. That's kind of the question for the Saints. But the Seahawks, I'm doubting them a little bit in this category. I'll be honest. I'm doubting them a little bit in this category. Based on, first they were only an offensive team. The defense was a disaster, and the defense was great, and the offense was just confusing. It was so confusing how bad they were. It wasn't terrible because they weren't really turning the ball over, but they couldn't do much. They couldn't do much of anything. So when they go play the high-powered offensive teams, I would imagine those teams can score, like teams like the Packers. I imagine they can, I would imagine they can score on this defense. So they're going to rely on the offense. Can they keep up? They're kind of here with both. Can they be here with one when they need to? Can they be at the top? And then can they rely? Can you rely on one? If only the offense is on, and you're playing a high-powered offense team that's probably going to outscore you. Or, the opposite. Can you rely on, if the offense is off, can you rely on the defense to shut a team down, a really good team, a contending team down and win? It's tough to see, so they're going to have to be on at the same time, which is possible. Definitely possible. I think they were saving a little bit on offense for the playoffs. Look at the Niners game. They had 6 points forever. As soon as they were down 2 scores, they went and scored. They score when they have to score. That's a big one for the Seahawks too. When they absolutely have to execute, it seems like they execute. I still worry about the pass defense. I'm thinking the defense isn't going to be as good. Maybe against the Rams it could be. But throughout the playoffs, I don't know if it'll be as good as it was down the stretch this season. It's not going to be as bad as it was early in the year, but teams will throw on them. Some of those high-powered offensive teams, they will air it out on them. I think they'll be pretty successful. I'm not saying any team's going to score 40 points on them, anything like that, but I think you get my point. So Seahawks are a big question mark team, I think, this year, which I talked about before. It's kind of odd because it's a team that's in the playoffs every year, but I think they're different this year. Titans, elite offense, elite run game. They can control the time of possession. It's weird because they don't really need to like score or to keep up with teams. They don't need to control their time of possession. Usually it's a team trying to pull off an upset. But they do it at a very high level, on top of having kind of that big playability as well. So that's big time. Just tough to game plan for. They're throwing more read options at you. Tannehill is very good at those. It's just very confusing on that, on top of everything else. You can stack the box in Henry and slow him down, but then Tannehill's going to air it out to his big time playmakers and A.J. Brown, Jonnu Smith, Corey Davis. So it's not an easy game plan for them. It's just offense, and more offense for the Titans. It's probably an annoying team to play against. Why they can't win the Super Bowl, I think it's the worst defense in the playoffs. Based on the regular season, maybe there'll be there's always turnarounds and change in the playoffs. It's a fresh season. Everything's new. But it's hard to imagine they would be anything better than maybe the second worst defense in the playoffs. I don't know. It's rough. You can throw on them. You can run. I think you can throw a little easier. They can't get pressure. I wish I put that. I wish the graphics guy put that in there. They got some sacks against Deshaun Watson. That's a different story. Playoffs a different story. They just can't get QB. That's kind of what stopped them short in the AFC Championship game. They just couldn't touch Mahomes. They couldn't breathe on Mahomes. Huge, and they kind of stopped themselves on offense too. But that's besides the point. You almost need. What do you need to win a championship? Actually, get to the Super Bowl and win it. You need great quarterback play. And it's more than this, but the basics: great quarterback play, protect the quarterback at a high level, and get after the quarterback at a high level. They have two of those. Can they protect the quarterback at a high level? I guess it's the question. They can't really get after the quarterback. So do they have a limit on where they can get to? They can't start slow. The games they started slow, they got their ass beat. Browns, Packers. It did not go well. Because it kind of takes away the run game. And again, Tannehill can still throw, but when teams predict what the Titans are doing, we don't need to stack the box. We can just play the pass, focus on these weapons. It becomes much tougher for their quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. It becomes much easier for the defense. They can't start slow. They're very bad at coming back, except for the Steelers game, it feels like. I guess they came back in the Browns game, but they came back. Are they going to win, though? They're going to come back and win. I kind of doubt them in that category. Depends on how much they're coming back from, but they can't start slow. They must stay in the game. The run game needs to be a part of it, and you can't – if you're down and you don't want to race the clock, that's the main thing. The clock is the main thing. That's the reason teams stop running when they're down. You're just wasting too much time because the clock keeps rolling. So they can't allow that to happen. They got to find a way to get more pressure. The defense got to step up. Dory Jackson kind of getting back in the mode the last couple of weeks, so maybe a Dory Jackson being in there can help them. Wish they had Clowney at this time of the year. But that offense is scary good. Washington, great and improving defense. I feel like it's getting better and better. I think it's an elite pass rush, and they got the two that you need on defense to compete in the playoffs. They got it. It's the Washington football team from the NFC East, but they got it. They get takeaways, and they get to the quarterback, both consistent and a high level. It's fantastic. But obviously the negatives and why they can are pretty alarming. Probably the worst offense in the playoffs. Just no explosive plays. They rely, I think, on Antonio Gibson coming up with an explosive play. I know McLaurin's pretty damn explosive. I love him a lot, but they just don't, mainly downfield. They don't really have much. Alex Smith could be a game manager. Can turn the ball over. They turn the ball over too often. I think that their differential there's two negative differential teams in terms of turnovers gained, turnovers lost. They are one of them. So there's more negative here. It's pretty obvious here. They rely on their defense too much here. So pretty clear stuff on that one. Ravens, elite run game. And the offense seems to be improving. I mean, it's obviously improving as the season went on. So it's a pretty dominant offense. I don't know if I'm going to call them an elite offense. I can argue on both sides of that. Lamar is a game plan nightmare. I mean, you can see what he's going to do, but you just can't stop him. It's just not. The Ravens are probably the last teams want to play. There's probably teams going, well, this team is better than the Ravens, but I don't want to play the Ravens, and not that the Ravens aren't, they're close to those top teams or maybe better in certain matchups, but I think their defense can create matchup problems as well. This is just a big matchup problem team for other teams. That's fantastic. Defense does because they play very tight coverage. Receivers are never really wide open unless they beat someone other than the outside corners. They're very good in press. They're very good enough. And they'll blitz the crap out of you, which some teams that backfires on. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but they'll blitz you, and they're very well coached team, mainly with the blitzing game. So it's just kind of like a problem. You gotta focus on so much with them, and it's a lot of things that you can focus on, but can you really stop it? And I guess that's Lamar and the running backs are getting going, Dobbins getting going, and then the blitz game. Why they can't win the Super Bowl, I think they rely on the run game too often, which it's their game though. You have to go with what works. But I guess it's more of the inconsistent passing game, And people think it's Lamar. Obviously, Lamar is not as accurate as some of the top quarterbacks in the playoffs, but I think it's more the receivers. And Lamar can miss some throws he should hit. It's pretty, it's obvious. Maybe he's constantly running, wearing down, then all of a sudden he throws it. It's not that easy to do, but the receivers, I guess, got to be better. They got to be better. They've been playing a little better, but Yeah, so if a team just game plans strictly for the run game, slows them down, make them beat with the pass, they might find success against them. They rely on the blitz too often. It's a big part of their game, but if it's not working, it feels like their defense is done. Like it feels like they got to go against what they don't like to do. Their edge rushers, I wish Ngakoue would pick it up. He's had some good games here and there, but their edge rushers can't get a whole bunch of pressure, a whole bunch of sacks. They kind of rely on the blitz game. And why they can't beat the Chiefs is because Mahomes picks apart the blitz game, and you can't blitz him, so they stop, and then they're running more zone covers than they're used to do, and it's just not their defense, and he just picks them apart downfield. So hopefully it's just the Chiefs thing. Hopefully they can fix that because they might have to go through the Chiefs. Missed tackles seem to be a big problem. I think they're second in the NFL. I know they're the worst team in the playoffs in terms of missed tackles. They have the most missed tackles in the playoffs on defense. That's a problem. That's a big problem. And I've noticed that too. They played Derrick Henry, who they got to play in the first round. They could not tackle him. Once the ball gets past about 5-10 yards, they kind of struggle with it. So that could be a problem. That could be a problem there. But a dangerous offense, a game plan nightmare for some. Buccaneers, arguably the most balanced team, so they're right up there with the Saints and company. Maybe a little more questions with the Bucs so than a team like the Saints. I trust the Saints to stay balanced a little more, perhaps. Offense is heating up right now. It looks really good. Something happened in the second half of that Falcons game, the first time they played them, and they are rolling. Tom Brady's playing much better ball. The receivers are all getting more separation. They're getting open. Ronald Jones got better every step of the way. He was out for a little bit, looked explosive again when he came back in last week. I like Ronald Jones. He played when he played like a top 5 running back, which is pretty wild. Defense gets the takeaways. They get to the quarterback. What I like, which is key here, they get to the quarterback multiple different ways here. They get it with their the old-fashioned way. Their pass rushers, Shaq Barrett, absolute stud. Jason Pierre-Paul has had a great year. These guys can actually drop in coverage at times too. They'll actually take Shaq Barrett and they'll pull him around. It's almost like a blitz for an edge rusher, but then they'll blitz Devin White and Levante David more Devin White. Devin White's still on the COVID list, so we'll see what happens there, but it should only be for a week if anything. So they get it in so many ways, and that's a tough game plan, and that's deadly. That is deadly in the playoffs. And they get those takeaways. Those defensive backs can get their hands on the ball. So pretty dangerous team here as it heats up, but the offense needs to be on. Can the offense score on solid defenses? We've seen them whenever they played good defenses, they just struggled to score. Saints, Rams, the Giants, they're playing Washington this week, but teams like that. The weird one's the Falcons. The Falcons were shutting down everybody. They shut down Mahomes for the most part. They were shutting down everybody. And the Buccaneers were playing them at the worst possible time when their defense was at its peak. And they dominated them both times offensively. The first half and the first one, not so much. But I'm not too worried because the second half and the whole other game. So maybe they figured something out. Maybe it's just something with the Falcons. So maybe they just can't play against other good defenses. I think some of these defenses are better, than the Falcons, obviously. So we'll see. Can they do it? Question mark there. When Brady is off, feels like the team is off. The defense kind of held them up at times, but Brady just keeps the whole team in sync, I think. So he's got to be on. His deep ball is still there. It's beautiful. Kind of the short, intermediate throws, like the ones you think he should hit, sometimes he misses those a little bit, I think he's okay right now. I think he's all right. Defense, the only knock I have, which they're fixing a little bit over the course of the season, they play too much soft coverage. Like the corners, they're good corners, but they refuse to go up and press when they know a team's playing small ball. I think they fixed that a little bit as the year went on, but it's something that just drives me nuts. So had the graphics guy put it up here. So, when you play... And they actually handled the Packers quite well. That's why it was interesting. But different game this time, maybe, if they play them. If they play the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, you're going to be worried about the deep. So these guys are going to be playing some soft coverage. But then Aaron Rodgers gets the ball quicker than anybody off his back foot, one-step drop. Those quick balls, they might kill them with that. So who knows? But I do like the Buccaneers moving forward. The Browns, elite run game, elite offensive line play is one of the most important things in football, especially the playoffs, especially winning championships or going on runs. So that's fantastic. They can control the clock at a high level. So, they're not the best team in the playoffs. So if you're that, and if you identify that, which they do, you win the time of possession game against those teams, and you can throw them off and you can win the game. If they hold the ball for very little time, you hold the ball for way longer than them, chances are you're going to win. So that's the game they're going to play. They have the system, the coaching staff, the players, the units to be successful at that. So that's that formula to beat almost any team that they kind of have. There is some flaws to it, which we'll talk about, but that's what they have. Playmaking defense, it's not the best defense at all. It's probably one of the worst ones in the playoffs, to be honest, but they'll get their hands on the ball. Myles Garrett will get that strip sack. He'll get the pressure to force somebody to throw an interception, whatever it may be. So that's good to have. Why they can't, they rely on the run too much. They kind of have to, but they rely on it too much. If they start slow, kind of similar to the Titans, if they start slow, it's not a come from behind team because they can't run the ball anymore. And on top of that, they rely on the play action pass too much. And there's no point to play action pass if teams know you aren't running the ball. You're not fooling anybody with that. If you run play action on obvious passing downs, quarterback's going to get sacked every time. So you cannot get down. The Browns are the ultimate cannot get down points team. So that, and I like Baker. I like what he's doing, but his job could be made a lot tougher in these scenarios. Weak pass defense. I think you can air it out on them. I think some of these teams that can air it out will air it on them. I think some of these teams that can do that and have the speed can really dominate them. They struggle against some top end speed. They got a problem with their angles. They're just not fast enough. And then Rona's hitting them hard right now. I feel really bad. The Browns, it just feels like aren't supposed to be in the playoffs or something. So they're going to be without some guys and their head coach Stefanski here in week 1. So this really isn't a week 1 wild card matchup, I should say, matchup video, but it's throughout the whole playoffs type of video. But that does hurt quite a bit, and I feel really bad. It's unfortunate. I want to see everyone at full strength. Rams covering part of the logo, and it's getting pretty dark in here, so the green screen's getting all funky, but we're going to move on. Why the Rams can win this role? Offense can wear teams down. The offense is at times it's really good. It's actually really good. A lot of motion, a lot of just quick. They'll wear you out. They'll run the ball at a high level. When Goff is on, he's on, and we'll talk about Goff. We might not even see him, but when he's on, he's actually on. He looks like a pretty damn good quarterback. Elite defense. I think this is the best defense in football. I think it's the best defense in the playoffs. I think other teams could catch him on that. But yeah, it's a great defense. They can lock down top receivers. They can take away a team's top receiver with Jalen Ramsey, maybe without even double covering a team. I think so, actually. With Jalen Ramsey, maybe the best corner in football, and that is pretty effective, and that can really throw teams off. They get quarterback pressure in different ways from the interior with Aaron Donald, from the outside with Leonard Floyd from the blitz. They like to blitz these guys as well, like to pull them inside and out, and they get takeaways. So those are key. The defense can win by themselves multiple games. It's that good. It's surprising how good it is. It's crazy. Why they can't. Offense is so inconsistent. One week it looks terrible. One week it looks great. They turn the ball over way too often. Goff will make a big play, but then he'll shoot his own team in the foot there. He just turns the ball over too much. They turn it over too much. And they struggle in the red zone. Between play calling and execution by the players, they just... they should have so many more touchdowns this year, and they just can't execute. So that's scary. And then Jared Goff injury. It's unlikely. It's a long shot that he'll play this week against Seattle. So that's pretty tough. If he plays, they got better chances there. They could be sneaky if they're pretty healthy. The Colts, I think, are one of the more balanced teams in football. Very balanced. Offense is getting better, so that kind of what makes them balance. The defense was balling and the offense is picking up. Phillip Rivers is playing better ball. Jonathan Taylor, the run, everything. T.Y. Hilton, everything. Costanzo's hurt. That's tough. Solid defense that gets takeaways. They don't get a ton of quarterback pressure, ton of sacks. They're not bad at all at that category, but they get the takeaways. That's big time. And they're relying on the run game to open up the passing game. Again, Phillip Rivers is playing good ball, but when the run game isn't there, if a team slows it down, takes it away, it makes his job a lot harder, and they kind of need that run game to be there to be rolling on all cylinders on offense. They're not really good from playing down or up. Down, they never really prove that, I guess, but if you're a run-first team that open things up on the run, if you get down multiple scores, 14 points or more, everything changes, and it's really tough. It is really tough. So it kind of will be, in my opinion, for the Colts. And for some reason, they're playing up. The play calling changes. Everything changes, and it hasn't looked good. So, I'm not necessarily going to predict if they get up by 2 scores, they're going to lose. So I'm not saying that at all. I think teams are starting to find success throwing the ball on them. The defense still kind of makes those big plays and shows up and gets clutch in the right moments. It's still very good. I think the defense doesn't feel as strong as it was earlier in the year. Teams are starting to air it out. They'll stop the run at a pretty damn high level still. But I think teams can throw it. I think it has to do with their cover two. They run a lot of cover two, which I'm not a fan of. I hate cover two. Obviously, you could run it here and there, but credit to that. I can't credit them enough because I hate cover two because it really works. They got to be the most successful cover two team in this era, this high passing era, so far through the last few years or more. So that's a well-coached team, sound team, the whole team flying to the ball. That's a team defense right there. So credit to them. It's a hard task. Worked at first, but you can good quarterbacks will pick apart cover two. Here's the thing though. Cover two is probably one of the harder coverages to run. Well, I guess if it's cover zero, the corners have the hardest job. So you can debate that, I suppose. But I'm not a fan of cover two for specific reasons. Specifically, there's a gap in between the corner and the safety. The safety, good quarterbacks will put it right over the corner on the sideline where the safety has to come all the way over to the farthest possible spot he has to get to. It'll beat teams up. You can beat teams up, with good quarterbacks. But here's the good thing, actually. I was saying it's probably one of the harder things to do, so it wouldn't be that hard to switch their defense a little bit when needed. Go more man, go more cover three, and they can throw teams off because teams can be thinking, all right, this is cover two. Quarterback tries to read the coverage. If they start running some trap coverage, make them think they're in cover two, but they're actually in man. Could be pretty deadly. Teams are going to be in their head because of the game plan, seeing what they seen on film from this team and how teams are having success in them. They're going to be thinking cover two. Nope, they're not in cover two. So the Colts kind of got a secret weapon of their own there in terms of their defense, really. So that's something to look out for. Can't wait to see what they got there. The Bears, and this is the last one, I believe. Yes, the Bears, somewhat balanced. It's kind of weird calling them a balanced team, but right now they got, there's games where they have some good offense and there's games where they got some good defense. Mainly I like their defense, solid defense. It's definitely felt like it's declined though. It really has. Not like it's not nowhere near bad. I think it's one of the better defenses in the playoffs. There's just weeks where they're giving up a lot more yards, more points. They do have some injuries too to monitor throughout the defense. They could be a tricky game plan for teams though in terms of their offense because the scheme, the type of plays they run, is fairly new, and that's why they're scoring a lot of points, and they're getting the run game going. Run game looks good too, but teams are like, what do we game plan for here? They're going to have to game plan for what they've been doing recently, but it's not, you don't have a whole bunch of tape on the Bears, running with this heavy play action offense, roll out Trubisky, pounding the ball at Montgomery, who's been tough to bring down for teams. Offensive line's playing better. So it could be tricky there. I don't really think they have a unit that's consistent enough. What's the best part of the Bears? Pass rush maybe with Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks. That's kind of just two guys. The other guys are solid, don't get me wrong, but sometimes Khalil Mack, teams double him up and they make him disappear a little bit. There's some good interior blocking schemes, players in the playoffs that can slow down Akeem Hicks. They're not there every week. I don't know if there's something that's consistent. Passing game's not consistent. Running game's not consistent. It's a little more consistent lately, but is there something that's going to take over and be the reason why they won? I have a hard time with that. I feel like there's, even though they're kind of balanced now, it seems like when the offense is scoring those 30 whatever points games, they're letting the defense is letting that kind of teams keep up a little bit, maybe besides the Texans game, and when the defense is hot and that elite, going back to that elite defense that they were at one point, the offense just can't do anything. So are they going to be on the same page? Turnover margins are the worst in the playoffs. I mentioned two teams are negative in turnover differential. It's Washington. It's the Bears. The Bears are worse, in terms of their margins there. They don't get enough turnovers and they'll turn the ball over a bit more. Have potential to do that. So that's pretty tough. That's a key part, and it's a fresh season, so things can change, things can turn around, but that's a key part of being, winning week after week after week against the best teams. So got to make plays. But yeah, that's all 14 teams, I believe. All right. That's it for this video. Really enjoy making this one every single year. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. Smash that like button if you did. Subscribe. Full NFL coverage, full playoff coverage. We got you. Follow that Twitter. It's a must-follow. Link down below for that. Turn notifications on so you don't miss any of it, any of the content. It's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.